everyone. Happy Chanukah. Just wanted to share a nice thought that came to mind recently about the holiday of Chanukah. So a lot of us are familiar with the concept of mahadrin in mitzvahs. That there's a concept, zekili vanveu, that we learn this concept of being beautifying mitzvahs when we perform the mitzvahs, and it's actually very salient when it comes to the mitzvah of Chanukah, that we even have a concept of mahadrin mina mahadrin, and that is for a person to light every night an extra candle on his menorah. Now, what a lot of people are not familiar with is that the Gemara in Shabbos and Daf Chaf Aleph actually brings down the opinion of Beis Shammai, who explains that the mahadrin mina mahadrin is not to light an extra candle each night, but is to actually diminish the nights of candles. So you start the first night with 8 candles, and then you diminish 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, until the last night you're only lighting 1. And the Gemara explains that Beis Shammai has 2 rationales as to why a person should light the menorah this way. Either because he says we're poches v'holech, it's better off for us to start signifying the mitzvah in full, the nes in full, and then diminish it as it goes. Alternatively, he brings down that the concept of diminishing the nights is reminiscent of the Parei Chag, of the sacrifices of cows that are brought on Sukkot, representing the 70 nations of the world. That we start with 13, and then as the days of Sukkot go on, we diminish it until the final day. In total, we have 70 cows altogether, but they're diminished in the amount of karbanos you bring daily. Now, the obvious question over here is what is Beis Shammai thinking? Why is it that when it comes to the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah, Beis Hillel says, let us expand the nes and do it day by day to show the beauty of the menorah, while Beis Shammai has the alternate approach, which is to diminish the nights? Where is Beis Shammai coming from? And it came to mind that maybe Beis Hillel is focusing on the mitzvah of Chanukah and the nes of the menorah. That what we really have to remember is that this nes is a tremendous nes, and Beis Hillel's approach in general, as we find, he's much more in tune with the social norms and with expanding and promoting Torah to the masses. We find this in the Gemara in Shabbos, where it says that Beis Hillel, somebody came to Beis Hillel and said, teach me the whole Torah on 1 foot, and he told him the rule of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, everything else we'll figure out afterwards. Beis Hillel was very focused on the long-term goals, and not necessarily on self-improvement and self-fortification, but on how the inspiration will be experienced and exposed to the masses. Beis Shammai, on the other hand, was much more cerebral. His approach, being an Av Bezdin, was much more din-oriented, which is, what is the bottom line? How am I going to improve myself? The masses they have to do their job, but I'm not responsible for the perception and for how my activity is going to affect the greater good of the people around me. There's the Arizal's brought down as saying that we're going to pass like Beis Shammai when it comes to the world to come, because at that point everything's going to be so clear that din is really going to be the predominant approach when it comes to service of Hashem. And Beis Shammai might be focusing on a different aspect of the Nes of Chanukah. Not only was the Nes of Chanukah the Pach Shemen, the fact that the menorah lived for 8 days, but it's also the fact that we won a military victory against people who are trying to suppress our exposure to Hashem and our freedom of religion. And with that, Beis Shammai's lighting of the menorah is much more combative. His approach is that we have to look at the lighting of the menorah, that we are fighting against the challenges of other nations. We're fighting against the exposure that we have to them, and the amount that they take us away from our connectivity to Hashem. And with that, Beis Shammai says the way to do it is to go less and less. We're diminishing their exposure to us. And like Parei Chag, the Rashi explains that the reason why we sacrifice Parei Chag is because we're trying to say, Hashem, fight for us against the other nations. So the approach of Beis Shammai is very much an approach of self-fortitude and an approach of taking up the challenge against the other nations, not focusing on the beauty of the mitzvah of the menorah, but rather on the the self-strength that we have to go ahead and express in order for us to prevail against the constant challenges. And unfortunately, right now, Klal Yisrael is in the midst of a war against people who are disinterested in allowing us to not only have freedom of religion, but to have the right to exist. And it's important for us to realize that not only is the mitzvah of Chanukah about the menorah, but it's about building within us this connectivity to Torah and to Judaism, for us to carry that on with us into the winter and into our lives in the future. So although we pass in like Beis Hillel and everybody should light their menorahs, adding on each and every night, we should never forget that Beis Shammai's message is still very much in the forefront, and something that we should really keep in mind as the holiday approaches. Everybody have a wonderful Hanukkah, and looking forward to seeing you all soon.